Page 131. Sometimes, in the middle of an apparently endless battle, the warrior has an idea and he manages to triumph in a matter of seconds. Then he thinks, why did I labor for so long over a battle that could have been resolved with only half the energy I spent on it? The truth is that all problems seem very simple once they have been resolved. The great victory, which appears so simple today, was the result of a series of small victories that went unnoticed. Then the warrior understands what happened and he sleeps easy, far from blaming himself for having taken so long to arrive. He is simply glad to know that he did arrive in the end. Page 132. There are two types of prayer. In the first type, the person asks for certain things to happen and attempts to tell God what he should do. This does not allow the Creator either time or space in which to act. God, who knows perfectly well what is best for each of us, will continue to do as he sees fit. And the person praying is left with the impression that his prayer went unanswered. In the second type, the person may not understand the Almighty's intentions, but he allows his life to develop according to his Creator's plans. He asks to be spared suffering. He asks for joy in the good fight, but he never forgets to add, "Thy will be done." This is how the warrior of light chooses to pray. Thy will be done. Page 133. The warrior knows that the most important words in all languages are the small words yes, love, and God. They are words that are easy enough to say and which fill vast empty spaces. There is, however, one word, another small word, that many people have great difficulty in saying, and the word is no. Someone who never says no thinks of himself as generous, understanding, polite, because no is thought of as being nasty, selfish, and spiritual. The warrior does not fall into this trap. There are times when in saying yes to others, he is actually saying no to himself. That is why he never says yes with his lips, if in his heart he is saying no. Page 134. First, God is sacrifice. Suffer in this life and you will be happy in the next. Second, people who have fun are childish. Remain tense at all times. Third, other people know what is best for us because they have more experience. Fourth, our duty is to make other people happy. We must please them even if that means making major sacrifices. Fifth, we must not drink from the cup of happiness. We might get to like it, and we won't always have it in our hands. Sixth, we must accept all punishments. We are guilty. Seventh, fear is a warning. We don't want to take any risks. These are the commandments that no warrior of light can obey. Page 135. A very large group of people is standing in the middle of the road, barring the way into paradise. The Puritan asks, "What are these sinners doing here?" And the moralist bawls, "The prostitutes wants to join the feast." The guardian of social values yells, "How can the adulteress be forgiven when she has sinned?" The penitent rends his clothes. Why cure a blind man if all he cares about is his illness and when he doesn't even say thank you? The ascetic protests, "You let that woman pour expensive oil on your hair. Why didn't she sell it instead to buy food?" Smiling, Jesus holds the door open, and the warriors of light go in, despite the hysterical shouting. Page 136. The opponent is wise. Whenever he can, he makes use of the easiest and most effective of his weapons, gossip. It doesn't take much effort to use it because others do the work for him. A few misdirected words can destroy months of dedication, years spent in search of harmony. The warrior of light is often the victim of this trick. He does not know where the blow came from and cannot prove that the gossip is false. Gossip does not allow him the right to defend himself. It condemns without a trial. When these people, when this happens, he puts up with the consequences and the deserved punishment for, as he well knows, words are powerful, but he suffers in silence and never uses the same weapon to hit back at his opponent. The warrior of light is not a coward. Page 137. You can give a fool 1,000 intellects, but the only one he will want is yours, says an Arabic proverb. When the warrior of light starts planting his garden, he notices that his neighbor is there spying. He likes to give advice on when to sow actions, when to fertilize thoughts and water conquests. If he listens to what his neighbor is saying, he will end up creating something that is not his. The garden he is tending will be his neighbor's idea. But a true warrior of light knows that every garden has its own mysteries, which only the patient hand of the gardener can unravel. That is why he prefers to concentrate on the sun, the rain, and the seasons. He knows that the fool who gives advice about someone else's garden is not tending his own plants. Page 138. In order to fight, you must keep your eyes open and have faithful companions by your side. It can happen that someone who is fighting alongside the warrior of light suddenly becomes his opponent instead. The warrior's first reaction is hatred, but he knows that a blind combatant is lost in the midst of battle, and so he tries to see the good things that his former ally did during the time in which they lived side by side. He tries to understand what led to that sudden change of attitude, what wounds he had accumulated in his soul. He tries to discover what made one of them abandon their dialogue. No one is entirely good or evil. That is what the warrior thinks when he says that he has a new opponent. Page 139. A warrior knows that the ends do not justify the means, because there are no ends. There are only means. Life carries him from unknown to unknown. Each moment is filled with this thrilling mystery. The warrior does not know where he came from, nor where he is going. But he is not here by chance, and he is overjoyed by surprises and excited by landscapes that he has never seen before. He often feels afraid, but that is normal in a warrior. If he thinks only of the goal, he will not be able to pay attention to the signs along the way. If he concentrates only on one question, he will miss various answers that are there beside him. That is why the warrior submits. Page 140. The warrior knows about the waterfall effect. He has often seen someone mistreating another person who lacks the courage to respond. Then, out of cowardice and resentment, that person vents his anger on someone weaker than himself, who takes it out on someone else in a veritable torrent of misery. No one knows the consequences of his own cruelty. That is why the warrior is careful in his use of the sword and only accepts an opponent who is worthy of him. In moments of rage, he punches a rock and bruises his hand. The hand will heal eventually, but a child who got beaten because his father lost a battle will bear the marks for the rest of his life. Page 141. When the order to move on comes, the warrior looks at all the friends he has made during the time that he followed the path. He thought some to hear the bells of a drowned temple. He told other stories around the fire. His heart is sad, but he knows that his sword is sacred, and that he must obey the orders of the one to whom he offered up his struggle. Then the warrior thanks his traveling companions, takes a deep breath, and continues on, laden with memories of an unforgettable journey. In page 142, the epilogue. It was dark by the time she finished speaking. The two of them sat watching the moon rising. Many of the things you told me contradict each other, he said. She got up. Goodbye, she said. You knew that the bells at the bottom of the sea were not just a legend, but you could only hear them when you realized that the wind, the seagulls, and the sound of the palm fronds were all part of the pealing of the bells. In just the same way, the warrior of light knows that everything around him, his victories, his defeats, his enthusiasm, and his despondency, form a part of his good fight, and he will know which strategy to use when he needs it. A warrior does not try to be coherent. He has learned to live with his contradictions. Who are you? He asked, but the woman was already moving off, walking over the waves towards the rising moon. The end.